Welcome back, and thank you once again for staying with us. Now let's look at the challenges of transportation in Lagos. Lagos is the largest city in Africa and probably the most populated as well. But its transport infrastructure is not as developed as it could be. We have with us in the studio Dr. Olukayode Bawa Ala, former Managing Director, Lagos Municipal Transport Services, LMTS. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. And joining us via Zoom is the Dean of the School of Transport of the Lagos State University, Professor Samuel Odelmi. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, and with you is my immediate dean, Dr. Bawala. You could see his picture in my office there.
So, Doctor, unfortunately, following the EndSARS protests, a large number of BRT buses were burnt. It brought a lot of sadness to a lot of people because even with the numbers growing, people still felt that there was not enough. There were not enough buses in Lagos. So how would this singular act affect transportation in Lagos State?
Very badly. It affects transportation very, very badly. It has taken us 3 hours to move from Ikorodu to this studio. Along the road, you will see hundreds of people waiting for public transportation. Bus system was just the alternative to the metro system anticipated for Lagos. We went for the bus system just as a palliative, pending the time we will have the capacity to run the metro system. The metro system or the mass transit system had been brought in eventually by one of the administrations, but still to be operated. So while we are having the bus system, and some people now went and bought 850 buses.
That many?
That is what we bought. 2018. 850 buses. Part of them were just released to the public.
Brand new buses.
Early this year.
Professor, isn't it ironic that isn't it ironic that it is those who actually use the services of the buses who are there burning down the buses?
Burning down the buses. After the government had gone through a lot of stress, even to get the buses out of customs. They were there for many months, and the government eventually got them out and had the challenge of even how to distribute them. But eventually, they came out with a concept. And that concept brought those buses at Oyingbo, there, only for the EndSARS to burn them down. Very, very bad.
Now, Professor, this matter of transportation in Lagos, why do we always concentrate on the road, the road, the road? Isn't the pressure on the road too much? Shouldn't we be looking at other options of moving people around?
There are options.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm asking the professor.
Okay. All right, all right. Thank you, and it's nice to be here. It's a matter that we've been discussing, and there will be no end to this discussion for a long time. I also joined Dr. Bawala, my immediate past dean of the School of Transport and Logistics, to lament the burning down of those buses. It was even a week before that incident that the head of Primero, the BRT person, was calling on the School of Logistics and Transport to join him, that he will be asked to manage some of those buses, that we have to do the logistics of the deployment just a week before. And it was really a massive pain. Now to your question about the predominance of road on the modes. Well, for the first instance, road is ubiquitous. Road is everywhere. You cannot move water to where water is not. And the rail is rigid. And we have neglected it for so long. So all the options we have really neglected them. In fact, it was because we had no choice. We would have neglected, even you could see some aspect of neglect on the roads, but at least we have to move from point to point. So we have water, we have rail. Lagos is trying to rejig the water with the Lac Ferry, new boats, with the operation of new lines. And Lagos is lucky in the sense that if we get it right, we'll be able to get a lot of transportation, that is deflood the roads along the lateral axis where the water line exists, to put them on water. It's just that also that one suffers so many problems. I've said it before. There is a problem of access to the jetties. There is a problem of the jetties themselves. There is the problem of the routes, the waterways that are wrecks on the water that is creating serious problem. Then the type of vehicles deployed, because Lac Ferry boats cannot be enough. There are private operators that are on the waterways, but it is inadequate. But the banana boats that you see that are most common, they don't have cover. You can't wear your suit and say you are going to the office and you are coming from Ikorodu. You'll be drenched because 90% of them are open boats and they are open to weather elements and all that. So that is why road becomes the most dominant. And well, if you ask me, why is it that we are having problem? I just mentioned it and stop there. The problems are well described, but there is indiscipline of everybody, in addition to the burning of our buses recently that will have ameliorated the situation. There is the situation of people doing their market on the road, and there is the mismanagement of traffic at construction sites where they are doing road repairs. There is no plan at all to manage traffic on construction sites. And the road condition is there, and the commercial buses that we have, they have extremely low capacity. I've shouted about this for long. The BRT buses will have been a replacement, but I've always believed that we better produce, let it come from within, because for God knows what, the burning of those buses might not be unconnected with the fact that it's going to compete or push the yellow buses off the road. These are hypotheses. But if it has come from manufactured in Ikorodu or manufactured in Epe or Badagry, it will come from us, and that antipathy to it may not be so obvious. So, but part of them all is indiscipline. And the indiscipline makes traffic gridlock. And this leads to need for law enforcement. Unfortunately, in recent times, the law enforcement officers have been under attack. So we are in a terrible cul-de-sac.
Well, let me ask Dr. Bawala, what you said the other time about the 850 buses. I don't know. Alero was able to express how she felt. I can't, because I'm completely at a loss. Let me ask you, how much is it going to cost the government to replace those vehicles if we're going to go through replacing them the same way? We'll come back to this suggestion made by Professor Dewumi, but how much will it cost the government to replace those vehicles if that has to be done? Because clearly with the experience that you talked about, the hundreds of people walking on the road, that is highly essential. How much is it likely to cost?
That estimate to be very difficult to establish now in view of so many factors. I think the principal factor will be the present rate of exchange of the naira. It has affected importation, and the buses were imported.
Clearly.
Therefore, if it has cost the government 2 billion naira or 3 billion naira in I think in 2017, they were here by 2018, it won't cost them the same thing now.
No. Exchange rate was...
It will cost them more.
There's something you said earlier, Doc, that pricked my interest. You said that the bus system was a palliative to a metro system that you talked about. Hitherto, we had the bus system. You are former MD of Lagos Municipal Transport Service in Lagos. So if we had that system at the time, what was the projection and why was it difficult for us to get to that projection of the metro line on time before we had to use the palliative?
That goes back to many, many years. Many, many years. As far back as Lagos State was created in 1967. Yes. JN Sapas was the very, very first bus company. Lagos City Council acquired Lagos, JN Sapas.
In Nigeria?
In Lagos. Subsequently, when the state government was created, Lagos City Transport Service was acquired and turned to Lagos State Transport Corporation. And there, the bus system grew by leaps and bounds, government buying more and more buses. An administration came in and said, we should go for the metro line. And survey was done, everything was planned, but it was turned down at the last minute, even after we had paid some fund. We lost some fund in Lagos State because of that. Metro line now has to come back.
Before you get to that point of the metro line coming back,
yes.
Let's take a short break. I'm very interested in this one. Perhaps we could start that business we've been talking about after now. You can't imagine the kind of things that we've been talking about while the break was on, because it's actually very heart-wrenching for those who know how to think. Well, Dr. Olukayode Bawala is still with us here. Well, you were talking about the point at which metro line came into the conversation, you know, in Nigeria. But there are a number of other questions on my mind. The bus system is a palliative, that's what you said. But it seems like the palliative is the main thing now. Before we get to that, let's go on with the story where you before we went on break.
The metro line, having been stopped, the government needed alternative. And so a delegation was sent to the World Bank, led by my humble self, to go and find option. And we came back and recommended terms of reference for necessary consultancy as to be able to source out the alternative. And the alternative came out to be bus system. Because at that time, BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, had just been introduced in the South American countries. And we found it, at least to be able to help the developing countries that cannot afford to run Metro Line. And so that was recommended, but with a proviso that Lamata should be created. The present Lamata, to take care of the transport system in metropolitan Lagos, with the aim of getting the ultimate infrastructure for urban transport, that is mass transit. That is why Lamata is there. Lamata had successfully established the BRT. Unfortunately, they cannot go beyond their offices. Some people have to be on the road to operate. And the very first attempt to operate the BRT was unsuccessful. You all know what happened. The buses came out and they went back again. Another attempt is being done on Ikorodu, Lagos BRT route through Primero. That's another attempt. Another attempt is now being introduced between Oshodi and Ota. Hopefully, they will succeed. But the ultimate is what is happening along Lagos Badagry Express Road, the Blue Line, and the one that is happening between Ido and Alagbado, the Red Line, plus 5 other lines that had been identified in Lagos. That's the ultimate. We will continue to have buses being bought, buses being burnt, buses being scrapped, but the infrastructure of the mass transit will remain there. And that is the ultimate for Lagos. Thanks to God, government at least promised us that by 2022, the Lagos, the Badagry, Agbara, Marina line will be commissioned.
But,
No.
sorry.
Sorry. Doc, you spoke about, when he asked the question about replacing those buses, you spoke about exchange rate. And before that, you had spoken about how long they had spent at the ports when they arrived. But we do have companies in this country that can make buses for us, don't we? What is wrong with those buses? Or what is wrong with those companies building buses for our use?
Nothing wrong with them. Patronage. They are there to exist, to make profit, to produce and make profit. But if there is production and there is no sale,
no, but if they're commissioned, for instance, Lagos State orders, make us 1,000 buses, for instance.
Fair enough. Let the Lagos State order.
So why
The
are
ones
we,
that were born came from outside Lagos.
why do we spend, now you say that it's practically impossible to replace those buses because of the exchange rate.
Yes.
So
Highly impossible.
what is going to happen?
Sit down and look.
Oh my God. Well, Doc,
Dear.
Yes. That is the truth. The government has just come out of COVID-19 expenditure. The economy is down. The government has raised a committee to fund the rebuilding of Lagos.
Not to buy buses.
All these are signals for all of us in Lagos to see the situation of the government financially.
Dire.
well, some would say, from what Alere is saying, some would say that local production of these buses would look like a plausible low-hanging fruits.
Yes.
Now, you have talked about some other companies that have come and are no longer as strong, if at all existent. You've talked about, what's it called? Volkswagen in Lagos, Peugeot in Kaduna, Anamco, I don't know if...
In Enugu.
In Enugu, if they still exist.
Stia in Kano,
Okay. So, now, those ones...
Leyland in Ibadan.
existed, and Leyland is a bus making organization.
course.
Right.
What is wrong with us bringing those back to generate these vehicles and create employment?
There is nothing wrong. It's governance. Governance. Pure and simple. Governance. If a government or an administration decides to establish industries and identify transportation industry as one that requires buses and say, yes, let us support this sector. And they build all those motor factories, industries that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And another administration comes up and says, oh, no, let's begin to import.
Okay.
That's it.
We will.
That's
we'll
all.
go to Prof in
That's
just
all.
one moment. But
Governance.
having consulted, for government before now, if you would you advise the Lagos State government to patronize local bus making companies?
Well, where is there? There's a place government has designed for building of buses. It's there. It's still vacant. That is one. There's another place along Ikorodu, Ogijo, reserved by this very Lagos State government to refurbish all the buses being run by government. Yes.
Okay.
It was given to me, and when I was the general manager, it's still there. So they have made their efforts, but if governance changes,
Policies should not change.
the policy should not change, but it has changed in the last 4 or 5 years. And that is why you have the situation on the road in Lagos as at now. Fort Mainland Bridge was stopped. We lost 4 years in that. Ikorodu, Ishawo Road, that will have taken me from Ikorodu to this place in less than 45 minutes, are taking me 3 hours, abandoned.
Oh dear.
Yes,
Professor-
those are the things that we should relate with governance. We are lucky that we have about 5 of them that are in charge of transportation in Lagos today. They know their owners, and they have been there for some time.
Okay.
So they are not novice. They are concerned with the policies that have been established, the service, the plans that are there, and that's why they made their policy as at now number 1, traffic management and transportation.
Now, Prof, it seems like we took 3 steps forward towards solving, well, at least improving our situation in Lagos. And then we now took 10 steps backwards with the burning of all those buses. So, where do we go from here? What happens now?
Well, we have taken that steps, and as you mentioned to Dr. Bawala, now we have no choice. The money is not there. We also had that we recall that even the money to purchase those buses, we are the special intervention fund. It's not even the money that is Lagos could hardly dip his money into his pocket and pull out. It was the money of the special intervention fund that Lagos just put aside, Ambode government just put aside and said, okay, let me use it to import these buses. So it's not out of pocket money. So even in normal times, that's not something that we can easily get. So for me, replacing those buses is going to be more than a World Cup. So that is number 1. Number 2, the manufacturing plants that you mentioned, actually, there were about 12 of them. At the time they were established, you have mentioned the folks in Lagos, the Leyland at Ibadan, Mitsubishi, Ilorin, Steer in Bauchi, that's Kano, in Bauchi Steer, then Peugeot in Kaduna, Mitsubishi and Toyota, and so on, and Mercedes-Benz and Amco in Enugu. Well, they all died, like only many of them are left. So personally, that is not what I'm recommending. What I'm recommending, and I've had this discussion at the good quarters in Lagos State, that it's better the Lagos State government gives specifications of high capacity buses, or like the Bolue of old, but modernized to be able to accommodate large quantity. These are buses that you will just import the chassis, but the entire building of the bus will be locally made. If you go to Nairobi, you will see these are the buses that are moving. The technology will be domesticated. The employment is there and replacement is there. The cost will be easy. Let us not look towards the Leyland, the Bijo, the Toyota, and so on in the country. We will still have challenges. Let us, just say, look, if you want to operate this type of model, this is the type of model, technical specifications, go and fabricate it anywhere. Don't give them any place. Nigerians will rise up to it, and many hands will be on deck. Not me having to. I've always known that we will have problems with those buses, because even maintenance, although there is a maintenance yard established, but I know, but this is not where my mind was going to. That was not what I was thinking about. Now, secondly, on the metro line, well, the metro is difficult anywhere in the world, but the one that Lagos has put in place, the red line, that is Ido to Agege to, what's the other place there? Now, I've said, and I think it is going to operate like that. Lagos should not operate an independent line. There should be synergy between that line that the federal government is bringing from Agege side to Apapa, so that there will be no duplication of effort. The one that I think Lagos should emphasize more now is the yellow line that goes from that Ido Marina side to Ekpe, because that axis is becoming a tightrope for Lagos transport. You know, Lagos is known by its length rather than by its breadth. From Badagry to Ekpe, you will see that it's a linear state. So if you solve Badagry to Marina, then you take it from there to Ekpe, you have solved the spinal cord problem, transportation, because that's the major artery, the major spinal cord of Lagos transportation corridors. So you can take others, Agege down to Ido. So they should focus on that, because even the road they are making, that road, Express Lekki Road, they with heavy traffic that Dangote is going to bring on board on that road, it cannot withstand the volume of that traffic. So with a good rail system to take it, and Dr. Bawala mentioned the Agbara to Marina. Honestly, that has been so long in coming. It was abandoned for a long time. So I think for now, the one thing is that palliative on our roads to keep the traffic moving at all, minimally. Palliative on the road, get the water running, the little that is running on water, and quickly finish the little rail that we have.
Thank you very much, Professor Samuel Odeume, who joined us via Zoom. Professor is the Dean of the School of Transport and Logistics, Lagos State University. And we had in the studio Dr. Olukayode Bawala, former MD, Lagos Municipal Transport Services. Of course, this conversation goes on because it's affecting everybody who lives in Lagos.
And I'm the pioneer dean of that school, where he is now.
Thank you very much for coming, sir. And thanks very much for joining us, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sunrise will return in just a moment. Do stay with us.